Sorry, I'm going to just ask you because this is going to be interactive, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions as you're going through, if that's okay with you, just to clarify with regards to, for example, the one you're talking about with regards to regaining your citizenship. So if anyone who acquired citizenship before August 2010, they would need to regain their citizenship. And the documents that you have listed, if they don't have those documents, how do they go about trying to regain their citizenship? For example, if they don't have, they left when they were young and they didn't have the Kenyan citizenship, Kenyan ID card. What else can they use as documents to try and regain citizenship?
Thank you. There's a bunch of documents that I've mentioned there, and one of the things is a birth certificate. We will know whether you acquired, like, for example, if you turn 18 years, we advise you to apply. You are supposed to apply for a Kenyan ID because you will not be able to access most of the government services. But if you had left before you acquired an ID, then you can use the birth certificate to do the process of regaining. Because again, remember, if you have lost your citizenship and do not have an ID, you cannot also apply for any other document. So you will need to regain using the birth certificate, and those are the documents that I've mentioned.
One of the questions asks from there, if you have lost your birth certificate and that's the only thing you've got left, how then do you go about getting a duplicate of your birth certificate? Is that something that can be offered so that you can use that to regain your citizenship? Or how else can you get a copy of your birth certificate?
I suggest we answer that regaining citizenship. We advise you to apply for both regaining citizenship and the declaration at the same time so that the two processes can take place concurrently, so that once we send them to Nairobi, we get just a response once instead of you doing it twice, regaining and a declaration. That is now about regaining Kenya citizenship. The law also requires that after you regain your citizenship, or if you have another citizenship, you declare the other citizenship. That is what it's actually called by declaration of dual citizenship. You have another citizenship, so you need to let us know, I have another citizenship. And that is also done through an application. And the application form is available on our website. It's also a manual form again. So if you have regained your citizenship, you will need to do a declaration. If you have acquired your citizenship after 2010, 27th August 2010, and you are over 18 years, you also need to declare your dual citizenship. So it's done by whoever has regained and whoever is over 18 years and acquired citizenship after 27th August 2010. Again, it's a couple of documents that you need, which is on the website. There is an application form. The big difference between the form for regaining and citizenship, the regaining citizenship and declaration, is the one for declaration requires to be signed, stamped by a solicitor. It can be done by a notary or commissioner for oaths of your choice. The other documents you need to give us, again, is a copy of your birth certificate. We need 2 passport size photographs, biodata pages of your Kenya passport and the foreign passport. Again, any name that is being changed needs to be supported by documentary evidence, either of a copy of marriage certificate, and deed poll, Kenya Gazette. Again, note that foreign deed polls are not acceptable to change a Kenyan document. Those two processes, those two documents, regaining citizenship, declaration of citizenship, you do not need to come to the mission. Please note that it's only 2 services that requires you to come to the mission. That is for a passport and for the ID because of capture of your biometrics. Those other documents, you do the application, please ensure you check the website, what you require, attach the documents, and then send them to us. You mail them. We advise that you put a telephone number and an email, just in case there's something missing, we can call you up. We don't have to write to you letters or emails. You can indicate your telephone number there and we'll call you in case you are missing something.
But I think with this particular one, there's not really many questions we can ask on this one. Apart from the question, one of the questions is, can you use an expired Kenyan passport?
Depending at what time you are making that application. Because if you are making an application, you have an expired passport, we're expecting you to apply for a new passport. But if you are making particularly a regaining, if you are regaining, it means you can't apply for a renewal of Kenyan passport you have not regained. So you'll use the old Kenyan passport, yes. So it depends on the situations, the situation that is, the situation on the ground. If you are a regainer, then it means we can't give you any document until you regain citizenship. So you can use the old, expired Kenyan passport, yes.
How long is the process to reclaim your citizenship, and also what is the process? How long is the turnaround time for the birth certificate?
Birth certificate will take like about 6 to 8 weeks. Regaining of citizenship takes a little longer. It would take, we are talking about now, slightly more than 2 months. That process of regaining declaration.
We've got one of the questions, and I think this is again maybe where people are a little bit confused with regards to the regaining of the citizenship. If they don't have an ID card and if they don't have a birth certificate. So I think we're going back to the situation of, for anyone who was born, for anyone who doesn't have an ID card and got another citizenship, and now they need to try and regain it, how else they can regain it if they don't have an ID card and they don't have a birth certificate? How else they can regain it if they don't have? I think that's the question that they're seeking clarity on.
Let me advise that it is important to ensure that when you lose your documents, you apply for replacements. If you lose your birth certificate, please apply for a duplicate, so that duplicate will enable you to now apply for these other documentations. So if you've lost your birth certificate and you require to regain, go ahead and apply for a duplicate first. Then once you get the duplicate, now you apply for regaining of citizenship.
Thank you. And I'm just going to speak on a whim here. I take it that some situations or circumstances where the answer would depend on personal circumstances. And again, that is something that someone would have to present to the embassy, especially if it's personal circumstance. So not every case is going to be the same. This is the general element of it, but then there's going to be cases where it's very specific to a person, and that will be dealt with slightly different. Am I correct in saying that, or am I mistaken?
Of course, every case will be treated on its own because they are unique situations. But remember, a birth certificate is a report of, it's an occurrence. So everyone should have a birth certificate unless it is lost. Even, you remember, even for those who are born at home, there's what we call late registration. It's an occurrence that has taken place, or it's an event. So that event has to be recorded. So in terms of exemption of birth certificate, that one is not possible, but we'll facilitate you now to acquire a duplicate. But where we have unique situations, we will, of course, discuss with the individuals, explain where we can do this, where this cannot be done, or how that person can be facilitated. Because there are some cases indeed that could be more unique than others.
Alison, just a quick one, again, some clarity on this one. And again, maybe this will be one of those ones where it will be unique to some people. What happens if someone is orphaned and they cannot get one, obviously can't get parents' ID cards, but they also don't have access to death certificates? What happens in those situations?
Again, some of those situations are pretty unique in some situations. There are those cases we'll ask you if you have a sibling who has an ID. Again, somebody might say, I don't have a sibling, but somebody will have a sibling maybe who has an ID, a birth certificate, because it's really more of a history. There are those who are also able to access the death certificates. When we have those kind of situations, we'll ask you, we'll deal with that case as a unique case, get as much information as possible, and then forward it to that agency to check whether the record you have given us. Remember, if you give us some records about your parent, they might be able to search and get that information. Then that way now we'll tell you can apply. We'll tell you first, give us the information, we forward it to Nairobi. When they're able to get something, then we will be able to maybe facilitate. We'll also consult the Directorate of Immigration because they also have records about your file in Nairobi. Try and get some information, then we can be able now to move on.
You've actually touched on something that, again, I just wanted to mention that you've actually touched on a little bit, is around the mission and some of the decisions that your office is making in London. And could you just clarify, do the offices in London, do they make the decisions on the passports being issued there, or do the passports get issued back home with the IDs? Do any of the documents get processed in London, or does the decision have to be made somewhere else?
In terms of document issuance, we process forward to Nairobi. Remember, every agency specializes in a particular thing. If it is birth certificates, that is their business, and they have the records. So there are times you might even give us some documentation and we accept thinking they are okay. And when they get there, they compare the data information they have, it does not match. The same with the ID, it goes to the National Registration, NRB Bureau, National Registration Bureau. Remember, when we take your fingerprints, they'll go and feed the fingerprints into your system. Of course, the application that you submit and will tell you this and this is missing, so we cannot even send it to NRB. So once the application is complete, that's when we send it to NRB. That is for purposes of ID. We do process, I'll talk about passport maybe when we get to passports. Yeah, but those services I've already discussed, those ones are issued in Nairobi.
Thank you, Alison. And I think there's a gentleman who's asking what happens to people who have lived here for over 20 years and want to regain their ID. I think you've touched on this one. I don't know whether you could just summarize on that one again very, very quickly.
I think those who have been here for over 20 years, basically what it means is there's that high likelihood that they need to regain Kenyan citizenship. It is until you regain your citizenship. That is why we started with the citizenship, because now everything now flows. You have become a Kenyan. So you actually, when you regain citizenship, that letter that you get from immigration tells you you are now entitled to documents of registration. Documents of registration here actually is birth certificate and ID.
And I've got an anonymous here, so I'm not going to say who it's from. The anonymous question is, wale walikuja chini ya maji, what's the process of them trying to get to regain ID if they never acquired British citizenship?
Unataka nijibu na Kiswahili ama na
jibu na Kiswahili tafadhali.
Sasa unajua kuna wale walikuja, yes, na tunaelewa pia wale walikuja na wakaingia chini. Hiyo si kumaanisha wewe si Mkenya. Wewe ni Mkenya lakini hujapata document ya hapa. Usiogope kuja kuapply hizi documents, hata ni mzuri ukiwa nazo. Sasa unakuja utaeleza tu, juu mara mingi utapata at least you'll get immigration officer, you'll get either me, Sigei. Utaeleza tu useme mimi niko chini. Tutaangalia tu ile visa ulikuja nayo, as long as I believe uko na ile passport. Basically tunaweza ku identify, or basically tunaeleangu hata sisi na mtu kama huyo ata process documents. Remember, tuko na namna pia kuangalia, juu saa zingine utapata mtu anakunja na tunanganya na tunajua uko na document ingine. So we encourage usitumie hiyo kundanganya, because at one point it will catch up with your children when your children are now coming for documents. And it is sad when your child is coming for the documents and we are asking where your documents for one of your parents. Then we realize this parent required to regain, and this child requires that document.
What happens to children who were born to refugees?
That's not very clear to me. This is wale wako chini ya maji ama Kenyan who is because usually when you have a certain status, even refugee status, maybe you have been given asylum status, the same government that's facilitated your documentation is the same government that is going to facilitate your dependence. Remember, the documents that we are issuing the documents to Kenyans or to a Kenyan. So that is where we start. And we advise also, don't mix yourself up. When you've taken a certain kind of status that confers to you some kind of privileges, do not mix up. Otherwise, you end up losing even that privilege. So you have to be also careful that you've been given a certain privilege. That privilege, then you need to carry it all through.
Can someone use, actually, I'll just read exactly what they've said. It's a private, an anonymous question. Can you use a deed poll certified in Kenya to renew your passport if you're reverting back to your maiden name? From married name, if you don't have a divorce certificate. So their partner is not cooperating with regards to the divorce process. So they're not divorced yet, but she wants to revert back to her maiden name. Can she use her certified deed poll documents?
That's a bit tricky. That one I'll also have to get some legal guidance. I know using a deed poll you can change name in January, March you can change name, but I will need to get some legal guidance about. Remember, marriage is also a commitment, is a certificate, and you presented a certificate to change that name. So it is expected that for you now again to change or to drop that name, it is either through a divorce decree. So that's something I'll take up, and maybe in the next presentation we can answer that, or I can forward to you a response once I get a legal opinion on that.
With regards to e-citizens, can you just give us a brief guidelines on how someone accesses e-citizen? Because there's still a lot of people who don't know, one, how they access e-citizen and what documents they need to access e-citizen, especially for people who are trying to regain their citizenship, and they didn't know that they lost it because of when they acquired it. So they think they can still access e-citizen. Can you just clarify that for us, please?
Great. For those Kenyans who lost citizenship, and if they had identity cards, not the old generation, but not the latest generation, but there is say the second generation ID or the third one, they all will be able to access e-citizen by registering and creating an account as a citizen of Kenya. Mind you, the e-citizen account also allows foreigners to register there, but the services they can access is only visa or ETA application or any other services. But for one to access passport application, you must be a Kenyan citizen. So when you are creating that account, there are options, and it gives you that option. You click register as a Kenyan citizen, and it has all your details. So it will ask you to enter your year of birth and your first name, and then it will populate all the other fields, and then now it asks you to key in your password, and then you save. Once you are there, you are able to apply for your own passport and your children's passport. So regaining citizenship is a different thing. Getting to e-citizen, anybody can get, even those who lost. As long as you have a Kenyan ID, you can still get to the application of a passport. But now, when it comes to processing, we will not be able to process if you have lost by virtue of getting another citizenship before the Constitution allowed it.
Thank you very much, Sigay. Just a couple of things, just some clarity. Who needs an ETA? Because I think this is a conversation we keep having. Who actually needs to apply for an ETA? Can you apply for an ETA at the airport, and how much notice do you need to apply for the ETA?
You cannot be issued with an ETA on arrival. An ETA is a requirement before you board the flight to Kenya, if you are in that category of people who require an ETA. And we have said that if you have a valid Kenyan passport, you do not require an ETA. If you are traveling on a foreign passport and that you are holding a passport from the country which are not exempt from ETA, then you must apply for an ETA. And an ETA takes a minimum of 3 days to be processed. So if you are traveling, you need to apply maybe even a month before the day you travel, but not more than 3 months before the day you travel. Once an ETA is issued, it is valid for travel to Kenya from the date of issue up to 3 months. Even the last day on that 3 months, you can travel with it, but it is not a multiple ETA. It is only for one use. So if you travel to Kenya and then you come back and the ETA is still showing that it is still valid, it is expired by virtue that you have traveled with it and it is not a multiple entry ETA. Note that holders of a travel document, there is a difference between the passport itself and the travel document. There are those people who are holding those who are maybe refugees and they are holding travel document. Their ETA takes a minimum of 14 working days. Minimum. So you need to apply way in advance if you are holding an emergency, not an emergency, the travel document.
What happens with people who have got dual citizenship? And they've got a British passport and they've got a Kenyan passport. Do they still need to apply for an ETA?
No, if you have a valid Kenyan passport, you don't need an ETA. But if you are a dual citizen and you don't have a valid Kenyan passport, you need to apply for an ETA as well. But if you have a valid Kenyan passport, you don't need an ETA. And not only Kenyans, there is a list of other countries who do not require an ETA to travel to Kenya. I have referred you to that website, or if you go to Kenya High Commission website under the ETA, if you click down there and you scroll down, you will get a list of countries who do not require an ETA to travel to Kenya. And
let me add what Sige has just said. A few things. Even children, as long as they are holding their own passports, they require ETA. No ETA on arrival. Our website gives the list of those who are exempted. Mainly there are countries in Africa who are exempted from ETA. A number of them, you'll be able to get the list from there. Diplomatic passport holders, UN officials while on official duty holding laissez-passer. We also have some of the countries we have signed agreements with. So that information is available on the website. Please check before you go to the airport. We have had cases where a Kenyan goes to the airport with an ID. ID is a document of identity, not a travel document. If you are a dual citizen, all of it's an international immigration practice. It all depends on the document that you are holding. What passport are you holding? The passport you are holding subjects you to specific requirements. If you go to the airport and you are traveling on a valid Kenyan passport, airline will not ask you for anything else. They will just ask you, can I see your ticket? You are going home. But if you go to the airport, you have an expired Kenyan passport and you have a British passport, and you are telling airline officials that I'm going back home, but the passport that you are holding is an expired Kenyan passport, then they will tell you you cannot board on an expired Kenyan passport. You have to apply for a NETA on the British passport. So if you are traveling and dual citizen, it all depends on what you are selecting. The international immigration practice is the passport you use to depart should be the same passport you use to arrive and depart from that country and arrive. So you choose one passport to use all through in that journey. It makes your work and it will make it easier for you. Thank you.
Alison, just on that point, can you just briefly touch on the consequences of leaving on a British passport? Leaving on a Kenyan passport, so you're not paying your ETA, and then when you get to the Kenyan border, you present your British passport, or leaving on one.
Really, it's not a big deal. You only need to show, because the immigration officer would want to see how, like now, for example, when you leave UK, you don't get a stamp on any of the passports. When you arrive in Kenya, you are most likely going to use a Kenyan passport because that's the only one. Maybe, or you use the British passport. When you are exiting and you want to use a different passport, then you have to show the other passport that you used to enter. Because the system, if you use the UK, the system is going to show you have a UK passport, you used this, but you're exiting on a Kenyan one. So you need to show the immigration officer, yes, I entered on this passport and now I'm exiting on this. So it's a matter of now you having both and someone being able to confirm you arrived on this and exited on this. But usually the good practice is where you continuously use one. It's easier for you to, to have a systematic travel history. But there's no harm in having the two of them. You know at what point to use. If you are using a UK to arrive in Kenya, the immigration officer want to see you have a NETA.
Just a couple of questions around, again, the passport. I know the passport and ID issue is a very hot topic. So if you have someone who, one of the questions is, if someone's passport is with the Home Office and it has expired, does the person need to wait for the Home Office decision to be made, or can they use a copy of their birth certificate, a copy of their passport to renew the passport?
Now, when you are making an application or you present yourself to apply to replace your Kenyan passport, one, you must show or you must bring the passport that you are replacing. If the passport is not physically with you, that passport, we treat it as a lost passport because you are not presenting it to us. You are only seeing it with the Home Office. And it's not possible for us to go ahead and treat that as a replacement without seeing the old passport. And I don't know at what point the person is making the renewal if that passport is at the Home Office. I don't know. Whether the person wants to just make an application without even getting the status passed, maybe you may clarify.
I think they're waiting for a decision, and obviously things are becoming more difficult with regards to especially proving who you are, and you're having to rely on either a driver's license or a passport. Especially now, it's becoming more of you need a passport to prove that. And I think her question was whether they could renew with a copy of their passport.
That can be done, but it will be treated as a lost case.
Right. Okay. Thank you. With regards to accessing e-citizen, can someone use a UK number to access as e-citizen? Because I know, again, we've had people who, when you go to e-citizen, is asking you for a Kenyan number, and not everyone has a Kenyan number. Can they use just an email address and a UK number? And if they can't use a UK number, what's the process of them using a UK number?
Yeah, Maya, I mentioned earlier on that for you to access services as a Kenyan citizen, you must create an account using your ID card. If you create an account using a British passport and a British passport number or any other number, then you will not be able to access services like passport application for this matter.
Okay.
When you are creating an account, using a UK number is okay. You can create an account using a UK mobile number, but you must please note that you must be having an ID number for you to access even that account. You cannot create even an e-citizen account for purpose of passport application without a Kenyan ID number.
What happens and what kind of support is available to people who have been here for over 20 years, and now they want to put things right?
This issue I know has come up in many forums, and I've always advised. Kuna vile unaweza kusaidika na kuna vile ninasema ukae tu vile uko. In this way, kama ulikuja kwa njia zingine na umeshapata makaratasi, na hiyo makaratasi ya hapa iko kwa jina fulani, iko na date of birth fulani,
I did not lose my
na ukitoka Kenya, ulitoka Kenya ukiwa jina ingine, date of birth ingine, legally hao ni watu wawili tofauti. Hakuna namna sasa unaweza kuunganisha hiyo. Hata there are things you can change through a deed poll. Date of birth, please take this. Date of birth, place of birth, you cannot change through a deed poll. Those two do not change. Sasa kama kuna mtu anibadilisha hizo, hakuna namna hiyo anaweza kuja kubadilisha tena. Na mtu kama huyo sasa hawezi sema anaweza kuregain citizenship. Juu citizenship una regain kama you are ABCD. UK knows you as ABCD. Kenya knows you as ABCD. Lakini kama Kenya inakunjua as ABCD, lakini hapa sasa umekuwa maybe DEF, au ni watu wawili tofauti. Na nilisema kuna zile benefits unapata hapa na ile majina na pale pahali ya kuzaliwa, na hizo benefits zikaingia kwa watoto wako na zimeingia mpaka kwa wajukuu wako. Sasa juu kuna zile benefits pale, si ukae tu hivyo tu na uendelee hivyo. Juu sasa hata ukisema unataka kuringeni, utaringeni na majina gani? Sasa ukienda Kenya wanakujua kwa ile majina wanakujua, na wewe utaishi huko, na kama uko na documents za Kenya uziache huko Kenya. Juu you can imagine sasa unaweza kuzibeba wakati umefika hapa airport, kitu ifanyike, ufanyiwe search, upatikane na ile makaratasi. Sasa hiyo familia yako umeifanya anje. Remember, citizenship flows from a parent or a grandparent. Alikuwa grandparent akazaa watoto wakakuwa wa Kenya, huyo naye akazaa watoto wakawa wa Kenya. First generation, second generation, third generation. Kama yule wa kwanza first generation alikosea ama alipata ile kwa njia undanganyifu, akipatikana, wale wote kwa hiyo laini wamefanya nini? Wameumia pia. Kwa hivyo lazima tuwe waangalifu sana, tusikimbilie kutaka na kudemand mimi nataka kupata hizi documents. Zile za hapa na unajua nilikuwa ya survival, weka nazo zikiwa hivyo, ziko na benefits yake. Ukifika nyumbani Kenya, wewe ni Mkenya kwa hiyo njia, so the two cannot mix.
Asante sana Alicent, asante sana. Quick clarification. Are there any legal repercussions for someone who does not declare citizenship? Aja declare tieni Mkenya, anatumia passport ya hapa na anatumia passport ya nyumbani, aja declare. Are there any legal consequences?
The law provides that you should declare within 90 days after acquisition of a foreign citizenship. There are, yes, repercussions. But we don't like talking about the repercussions because we encourage you to do the declaration. It is provided for the law.
Thank you very much, Alicent. Faith, we've got your hand up.
Niko na maswali mbili. Moja, ninataka kujua like kuna wale wenye tulikuja huku tulikuwa single, alafu tukakuja huku tukabarikiwa, tuko na watoto, tuko na like husbands, na sasa unataka kuchange jina. Do I have to start by changing my ID and then change my name on my passport as well? Because I want to change the name on my passport and maybe still have my father's name on my ID. How am I supposed to do that? Like, is it a must that I have to change my name on my ID first so I can change my name on my passport?
No, you don't have to. For a passport, to change your passport is easier to bring a marriage certificate, and we will change for you that when you are replacing your passport. For an ID, remember, we said if you need to use your husband's name, it needs to be physically present. Where you find in most cases, in some cases, it's not possible. So you can have an ID in your maiden name, and you can have your passport in the marriage name.
Okay. My passport, like ija expire, but I need to change my name. You obviously, as you continue in this country, you get to acquire property na vitu kama hizo. Na unataka zikwe, and also pia when you're traveling, unataka majina zenu zi align, especially kama unatravel na mtoi. It gets very problematic ukipata surname zenu as align. So what the clarification I want ni hata kama passport yangu, my passport is not expiring. In fact, it is not near the expiry. Can I come and just change even without it having to expire?
Yes, I think you missed something when Mr. Sigay was making a presentation. Among the replacements, he mentioned when you are making a replacement of a passport, it's either you are doing a renewal of the existing booklet, you are replacing as a result of a lost case, mutilated, or change of particulars. Change of particulars would mean change of name or anything else that you may want to change. Anytime you are making a change in a passport, you must apply for a new booklet. There are those passports also you run out of pages, or then you apply for a new passport. So for you to change, yes, the name to your marriage name, you just apply, whether it's full or not full, or whether it has expanded or not. That's fine.
Thank you for the clarification. Alafu kuna mse nilikuwa nimeona kwa one of the groups, kwa groups kama wa mama, kuna msichana alikuwa ameuliza yeye alikuja UK akapata mtoi huku, na alafu venye walipata mtoi wakaachana na baba ya mtoto, lakini birth certificate ya mtoto ya UK iko na jina ya baba, na sasa anataka kuapply Kenyan born abroad birth certificate ya mtoi na ataki iko na jina ya baba. So what is she supposed to do?
You know, a birth certificate ya Kenya, ile born abroad, is a replica using the same information that you have provided. So if you want to make a change, then you need to change the UK birth certificate. Yeah?
Aye,
You need to change the UK birth certificate to apply for the Kenyan one, because the Kenyan one is going to take the information. Remember, I think you are given a period of time, I don't know whether it's 1 year, to do an amendment, which is done at the bottom of that birth certificate. And that child is entitled to the name of the father, to the name of whichever, because those names appear there. So
and a good question to back that really happier. If you are Kenyan born and your children are all British born, your wife is actually British born, and your wife has got issues with you and want to take control of the children and want to take everything from you here in the UK, and you are both Kenyan born, who is responsible for registering the children?
Did you say your wife, I mean, the scenario is your wife is, you are Kenyan, your wife is British?
No, your wife is Kenyan and you are also Kenyan.
Then you have
Kenyan children all born in the UK.
So you want to apply for birth certificate? Any of the parents can do that. Any of the parents can do application on behalf of a child. The same thing with a passport. Any of the parent can do that. Any of the Kenyan parents can do that.
What about if you are not divorced?
I think, Madam, let me add on what you have said. Any Kenyan parent can apply for a birth certificate for a child. In the event that you are not in good terms with one of the parent, or you are not even in contact with one of the parent, you attach a sworn affidavit explaining that you are not able to contact the father, or even maybe you got a child and you don't know, you happen to only have known the names of the father and it was placed in the birth certificate, and that was the end of the relationship that you had. So you attach, not for your case, Peter, for I am also answering to Faith, who say that they are not in touch with one of the parents. So you can go and swear an affidavit as a Kenyan parent and say that you are not able to get any document of the father, neither are you able to contact the father. That affidavit will be attached and the birth certificate will be processed, and the details in the Kenyan born abroad birth certificate will be exactly as they are in the British birth certificate.
Okay. I'm not sure if Esther, you're still there. Nick or Yugi, if you'd like to ask your question, please.
Yes, thank you. I've got two very quick questions.
Sorry, my apologies. I was struggling to unmute. My sincere apologies. Greetings from Manchester. My name is Esther Mwaura. I sincerely apologize. It's a very quick question, and I appreciate this forum. Thank you so much for this forum. Quick question. I just want to understand a bit of the dual nationality. Is it as straightforward as it comes on the system? Because I've noticed someone has put a link on the chat on this forum to show about the dual nationality. So I just wanted to understand that bit, the window of 90 days. If you could kindly clarify to me, I do apologize for coming late into the forum. Did you get my question?
Yeah, what we say that if you are a dual citizen, once you acquire citizenship of another country, you're required to declare it within 90 days. Right. But as I said, it's a continuous process. So if you have not declared, then you go ahead and declare, yes. Somebody had asked whether it is whether it's law or what are the consequences. And I said, you need to declare within 3 months. That is 90 days. But if you have not declared, then you go ahead and do the declaration.
Okay, and it's basically just to go to the link that's been provided.
The link, do the application and attach the documents that we have indicated and email it to the High Commission.
Oh, it's mailing. It's not something you attach online.
We said it's only 2 things that brings you to the High Commission: passport and ID. Most of the other documents are manual applications download, attach the documents required, mail them to the mission.
Absolutely. All right. I really appreciate your help. Thanks a lot. Have a nice evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. That was pretty quick and straightforward. Nick, you're next, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mia, and everybody. 2 questions. In the event that you're married to non-Kenyan, how do you go about your spouse getting Kenyan citizenship? That's one. And the second question is to the consular services. Thank you very much. You came to Leicester about 2 or 3 years ago. Could you tell us a bit about your consular outreach services? Thank you. That I'm asking on behalf of Kenyans in Leicester.
Thank you. About spouses of Kenyans applying for citizenship, it is a process. You can apply for citizenship through marriage, but we do not process that kind of citizenship through the mission. If you wish to apply, it's done online, immigration, through immigration website, and it's an online application. But at the time that you are doing an application, then you need to have a status in Kenya. A status could be in form of a dependent pass. So it's not something you'll be able to apply from here. And if you're applying, of course, through marriage, you must have been married for the last 7 years, and there's a marriage certificate. And that one you apply directly with immigration when you are back home, because that's the only time you'll have applied for a dependent pass and obtained a dependent pass. That's now for marriage through, that is for citizenship through marriage. At the mission, we only do regaining, declaration, renunciation. Any other kind of citizenship, you apply directly with immigration, Nairobi.
Thanks, Alison. So, quick one. So my wife is Zambian. We've been married for way too long, more than 7 years. Does she need to apply for Kenyan citizenship while we are in Kenya? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that is if you wish that she acquires Kenya citizenship, the time you'll go to Kenya, because you need to apply for a dependent pass. Okay. So when you apply for a dependent pass and you get the dependent pass, it's thereafter that you apply for a citizenship.
Thank you very much.
Did you talk about outreach services, Alison?
No, mobile consular services.
Yeah.
We have carried it out in a couple of places. It involves, of course, funding, and the funding comes from the State Department from Diaspora. And I don't know, the last time the PS was around, she addressed quite a number of Kenyans about the mobile consular services. These requests are usually sent by the missions to the PS, and the PS looks at the numbers of the Kenyans that have registered, whether it's in UK, whether it's US, whether it's in Dubai. The numbers determines whether she's gonna be funding. In this financial year, our government financial year is July to June. UK has identified, the State Department in conjunction with the mission have identified Glasgow and Belfast to benefit from the mobile consular services. We'll post a link to on our website, and we'll also send a link out to you Kenyans. Mobilize, register. Funding is from the State Department for we do not have that funding, but this funding will also be determined by the numbers, because if the numbers is 20, really, I don't think the funding will come through. Those are the 2 places that have been identified during this financial year.
Thank you very much, Alison. Thank you. Sorry, Esther, you've still got your hand up, and Nick, would you be able to drop them down so that I can make sure that I'm not calling you out again? G. Kimani, you've got your hand up?
I've still got my hand up for a very quick question, because it's just following on what the lady has just spoken about. I just want to understand one thing about the spousal dependent pass. But that's if I got it right, yeah? That's if you're intermarried and your wife or husband are foreign, they're not Kenyan. I just want to understand one thing. There was something like, if I'm not wrong, that this free entry of Africans to Kenya, isn't? Does that still apply?
Please note, we said not all. I said most of the African countries. So you need to go to the ETA, you go to our website,
Yeah.
Under ETA, you'll be able to see which countries or who are exempted from the ETA. There are quite a bunch of them. So you need to check before you travel or before you plan to travel whether you require or whether your spouse requires.
Okay, because the only reason I'm asking is because in the past, the spouse has taken a visa. So I wanted to know, does it still apply? And then I wanted to understand what are the, is it something that you apply online, this dependent pass? Does that exempt you? If they're not in ETA, does that mean that the applying of the dependent pass, is it done here or in Kenya?
Those are two different things.
Right.
ETA, or Electronic Travel Authorization, allows you to travel to Kenya. Just like a visa, meaning you can't travel without that.
Yeah, okay.
A dependent pass is a status for someone now in Kenya. You have a spouse, you are in Kenya, you are, and you want that spouse to have a longer or a more permanent status other than the ETA. Gotcha. It's just the same way if I come here on a visa and I want to have a more permanent, status, then I'll get a dependent on my spouse. So it's the same thing when you go to Kenya and you have a foreign partner. So you will submit that application online to immigration. You print it out, and then you submit together with the required documents. And one of the required documents for you to submit for a dependent pass is to show that you're in the country legally, and that will be by a visitor's pass, which will be stamped at the port of entry by the immigration officer. That's why I said you can only apply for that when you're in Kenya, because you have to show the status in Kenya.
Okay, that's clear. Yes. That's clear. I'll now lower my hand. You've been very precious. You've been very helpful. I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Alison. Thank you. Another question, Alison, is again, in the last few years, we've seen a drive of Kenyans who had been Chinyamaji and they managed to survive and everything was okay. But obviously the last few years with the change of policy in the UK, we're noticing a lot of issues that are coming up and people just don't know where to go and they don't know what services are available to them, especially when it comes to the embassy. How does the embassy keep track of the Kenyans in the UK? And can you just give us a rough idea of what the benefits are or the importance of Kenyans registering with the mission?
Yeah, Maya, it's important to register with the mission. One, we get to know where you are, even to communicate. Like we also have events sometimes, even where we need to get Kenyans to when we are doing like invitations, we know who is where, what sometimes the professions of those Kenyans, and when we need to tap into the Kenyans. We also get Kenyans who are in distress in some locations, community leader in that area. Students also sometimes get in some situations that require some attention. So we reach out to the Kenyans there. So it is really important. I don't think I can stress enough about the benefits of registering. You are Kenyan. And it's, sometimes it's sad when we have a Kenyan somewhere and we are asking the Kenyan, do you know any other Kenyan there? No. Mtu ni watu, you cannot live in isolation. And what I can also advise Kenyans, I will take this chance to advise Kenyans, please ensure you renew your documents. We have people who sometimes you hear someone come, you are told regain Kenya citizenship, and somebody says, oh, I don't need Kenya citizenship. Remember now with the changes with the UK, in UK now requires if you are dual multiple citizen, before they renew that UK passport, you need to go and acquire the passport of the other country. Whether it is, if you are French, you go to France and acquire the passport before they renew. So we have Kenyans whom we are even advised to regain Kenya citizenship, and they say they didn't have any need to, because they are the British or they have the British passport. Now, when you go to now renew the British passport, they ask you, can you go to your country, your embassy, your High Commission, get their passport first. Then you have those cases where now this individual has to apply for the passport. And in some cases, this person has to regain citizenship. So before you do the process of regaining, it's going to take a couple of months. So if you are needed to travel, even that British passport is not going to be renewed until you get the Kenyan one, the Ugandan one, the French. So it's important for Kenyans to ensure that you renew your passport in good time. Right now, we have really openings for the passports applications. You can take advantage. And yes, keep your documents valid at all times.
Alicent, on the issue of renewal of passports, is there an option for people to have a premium service? Obviously, with the British passport, you can pay an extra amount of money and then you can have your documents processed within a very short window. Is this an option within renewing your Kenyan passport?
We don't have a premium service, but should you require the document urgently, you send us an email, explain to us the nature of the urgency. Right now, passports are taking, once you submit, a turnaround of 4 weeks. So if you need to be considered for a prior, like priority appointment, if you cannot get, a priority appointment, you can write to us and then we can create a provision for you. But remember, please don't take advantage, because every Kenyan also wants to be served. So it's not every time you want to, mine is urgent, because even everybody else is really urgent, because you'll find that someone's passport expired even several years ago. But this time it becomes urgent because the UK says that, you need to renew the Kenyan one or you need to bring the Kenyan one. So we look at, each case on its own merit.
Thank you, Alicent. Mrs. Mukami,
Sorry.
you ask a question. Esther, give me just 2 seconds. Mukami, you've got your hands up.
Yes, thank you. Alicent, it's a question about registration. I'm just wondering whether there's a way one can find out whether they're registered. I know for a fact I've done it about twice, but each time I think I don't know whether names fall off the table or something. Is there a way of establishing whether one is on your records?
Yes, you can send an email to info@kenyahighcom.org.uk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And anytime you register, also you can get an email confirming you have registered. So if you want to confirm, you can send an email and then you'll get a response.
Asante.
If you're born on the 11th of June, 1978, and you want to renew your documents, and now you want to renew your documents and have the 12th of June, 1978, what is the situation and what is your dilemma? And how do we fix that?
2 things I say that cannot be fixed through a deed poll. There are those you can change name through deed poll. Date of birth, place of birth does not change. Those will remain. So there is no way of changing that. And that's why I said, like, for example, we have situation where sometimes someone acquired an ID in Kenya using the correct birth certificate. Fingerprints were captured there in the system. Much later, this individual goes through some other ways, akapata birth certificate ingine, juu anataka ilingane na kile amefanya hapa. Remember ile fingerprints, hata sisi tutachukua hapa commission kwa sababu umetuambia unjawahi kuwa na ID na umetupatia birth certificate, na birth certificate iko genuine. Sisi hatutajua hapa commission. Remember, hii information yote sasa application tunatuma kwa National Registration Bureau. We have taken your fingerprints. Once they feed your fingerprints into their system, kama ulikuwa na ID ingine, they will pop up with all your information, including ile information, ile birth certificate ya zamani ulitumia. Sasa kama hiyo wanasema hatuwezi badilisha kwa sababu hiyo ni record ile ilitumika, hiyo ndio ilikuwa ya kweli. Kwa hivyo hawatabadilisha na hii ingine. So those 2 places, unless there's an error, maybe place of birth, not date of birth. Date of birth cannot have ran through from a birth certificate, an ID. Remember, birth certificate, I said, is an occurrence, is a report of birth. And then it is used as a primary document to issue an ID. At the time you are getting an ID, you are over 18 years, fingerprints have been captured, you did not say that there is anything wrong. Now utapata, somebody has had that ID for the last couple of years, many years. Sasa anataka kubadilisha. Kuna zile record ambazo si rahisi, zitakuwa rahisi kubadilisha. Even legally, it is not provided, it will not work.
Okay, I've actually got someone who wants to ask a question, especially around, Judy, if you're online, if I could just get you to raise your hand. Where are you?
Yes, my question is, I didn't know I have to regain citizenship first before applying for ID. I went home, applied for ID, but it has some errors, and the error is the day of my birth. Now, I don't feel confident using because my other document says different date of birth. How can I have it corrected? And I don't have birth certificate. I have a copy.
That is simple. Only the mother knows when the child was born.
Right. Alicent, would you like to pick this up, please?
Yeah, I would advise that is a case, a personal case. Please send us an email, immigration@kenyacom.org, and attach those documents. Then, and a number, we will now, deal with you in a personal way.
Alicent, asante sana. And just for people who are on the chat, Alicent, kama kuna mtu kwa chat, na again, I'm going to go back to the chini ya maji because I'm getting so many questions. Ule mtu ako chini ya maji na bado anaogopa kukuja kwa ofisi ya embassy. How else can they communicate with you? Anaogopa kuja huko, anaogopa mtamuuza. How else can this person communicate with you?
Now, I don't know how we can put this to you, fellow Kenyans, that we work for Kenyan government, not for UK. We are not sellouts. Kazi yetu si kupeana information yako. So you can call us, you can send us emails, because hakuna namna ingine utatupata. Ni either utupigie simu ama utuandikie email.
I'm going to emphasize this. I cannot say this enough. Please, please, please find a Kenyan community, and I think Esther has kind of touched on this. Make sure you find a Kenyan community and attach yourself to a Kenyan community. We know exactly what has happened in this last year. We've had so many bereavements where people are having to try and find loved ones, their families, because people have just not kept in contact with other Kenyans. It's very important that you connect yourself with a Kenyan group, even if it means staying muted in groups, that's okay, but be part of a group. Find a Kenyan community and attach yourself to it. Register with the mission and attach yourself to it so that people can identify you, or even a next of kin. And if you need support, the first point of contact will be the Kenyan community. That's where people run for help. So find a community, attach yourself to a community, usiteseke peke yako.